A new report has come out with the top 10 most impossibly unaffordable cities in the world. And 2 Canadian cities made that list. And of course, those cities are Toronto and Vancouver. Now, here's what the rest of the list looked like. You got Hong Kong coming in at number 1, Sydney coming in number 2, Vancouver, San Jose, Los Angeles, Honolulu, Melbourne, Australia, San Francisco, San Diego, and then Toronto. And 9 out of these 10 cities have something in common, which I'll share with you at the end of the video. Now, this is a top 10 list you're not actually excited to be on, especially if you're trying to buy in any of these global markets. And this report that came out looks specifically at income versus prices. And that's what makes these markets impossibly unaffordable. And although some may think this is real estate agent spin, what these reports never really get into is, well, where were interest rates at? Because they've been historically low since 2008 up to about March 2022. And what's been the supply and demand, the population growth in these markets? My name's Tom Storey. I run a real estate team here in the city of Toronto. Even though Toronto is technically on this list and it's very unaffordable to many people, we've been helping buyers and sellers make moves in this market for over a decade. If you'd like to book a call with me or somebody else on my team, you can do that in the first link in the description. I saw this headline pop up a few times this morning. Whoever wrote impossibly unaffordable for top 10 lists, kudos to them. Amazing marketing. It's very, very clickable. And I recently went on CTV Live today and shared my thoughts about this article. And before I share this interview with you, potentially the good news here is that Edmonton and Calgary were seen as one of the most affordable markets here in Canada. So we do have options. Make sure to stick around till the end of the video because I'm going to share with you one thing that 9 of these cities have in common other than Toronto. Here's the interview with CTV. I hope you enjoy.
Well, it's not news to many Canadians, but the cost of living, of course, has gone up. And for many, the prospect of owning a home is nothing more than a pipe dream. But we're getting a clearer picture of just how dire the situation is in some of Canada's most expensive cities. There's a new report out, and it uses a price-to-income ratio to determine the world's most unaffordable cities. Vancouver and Toronto make the top 10 list. Vancouver's at number 3, Toronto is at 10. The report links the rise in remote work during the pandemic to increased demand for houses outside city centers and blames soaring house prices on land use policies designed to stop urban sprawl. That's not all bad news for Canada's cities. The report says Edmonton and Calgary are amongst the most affordable to live in. Joining me now is Tom Storey, sales rep for Royal LePage Signature Realty. And Tom, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
When you look at that report, what does it mean for young people when they see those numbers? If they want to live in a city like Toronto or Vancouver, will they ever be able to own?
I think they will be able to own, but if you look at just the income versus prices, that makes it very, very difficult. But I'll say it's very, very rare that someone comes to me with the average income and is buying what the average home would be in Toronto, and that price is over $1 million. People are typically starting a lot further down on that property ladder. So I do think for the first-time home buyers, the next generation trying to get in, you see these reports, and this is not a top 10 list you're necessarily proud of being in, right?
No.
But another thing in the last 20 years, or really since maybe 2008, you look at interest rates. And if you look at that graph and it shows, okay, well, income's only gone here, but prices have gone here. Well, interest rates have been very low. And I will say that in today's current interest rate environment, I'm encouraged that I don't think the next 10 year of price growth is going to be like the last 10 years, but people have to be a bit more creative to get into the market.
And what are people doing to try and get into the market? And is it worth it for them?
Well, that's the thing, too. I think we've been told, and the numbers are very clear, like the net worth of owners in Canada has gone up double in the last 20 years, where the net worth of renters hasn't really moved that much. But I think a lot of people are told, like, well, buying a house is just something you have to do. It's like this level of success you want to get to in Canada. And I'd say, like, it's not necessarily true for a lot of people because they're doing something that they've told they're supposed to be doing. And I think there's other alternatives to grow your net worth and kind of save for retirement and do smart things. And for a lot of people that aren't financially ready, this might not be the best thing to do. But I would say they're being creative. Some people that are under rent control in really good living conditions, what they're doing is actually buying an investment property as their first property so that they can get into the market. They're teaming up with their friends and family to co-buy properties and actually get in. And there's risks involved with all of this. But the days of just getting your first job, buying that detached house in Toronto, those are long gone.
Now, we're talking about Toronto and Vancouver as being the most expensive, but also Calgary and Edmonton. And with with the ability to work from home, does that open up people maybe thinking about moving to another city?
Absolutely. The interprovincial migration that we've seen in Canada since 2020 has been massive. And a lot of people from Toronto are now moving over to Calgary and Edmonton. And those markets are very, very hot, even with the higher interest rates. Now, I'm sure it won't be too far if this continues that they're saying that prices are unaffordable in those markets, because a lot of people that are moving over, they're not just the first-time home buyers. They're the people that sold their Toronto property that they had for 10 years with a ton of equity in it that are going and kind of bidding up the prices in those other markets. So there is still opportunities there, but I think over a period of time, you're going to see the type of regulations in Alberta that we've seen in Ontario and BC if house prices keep climbing.
Okay. Tom, thank you very much for your insight.
Thanks so much for having me.
Tom Storey is a sales rep for Royal LePage Signature Realty.
So what do the top 9 of these cities have in common? Well, they're on the Pacific Ocean. If you are looking to get into the Toronto market this year, I've got a video for you breaking down how to never overpay for a property. You can check it out next. Thanks so much for watching. My name's Tom Storey, and remember, home is where your story begins.